Good morning, humanity. It's September 9th, 2019. And again, it's Mondays with Bev and Paul. And guess what? My name's Paul.
Good morning. My name's Bev. Hi,
And hi,
Paul.
Bev. Now we have to move forward here instead
Hi,
of
Hi, Paul.
hi, Paul. Good to
Instead
see
of
you.
hi, Paul.
Yeah, we're trying to practice moving together instead of apart, but here we are. We're going to
Apart.
have a great show today. And let me change a couple things, but our question for the day is going to be why practice BioTouch? I mean, what a great question,
hmm
and that came about with. Wait, let me check something here. Let me move this down to here. There we go. And then move this. There we go. All right, now we're set. Whoops.
Good.
Too many things to change. But in a couple of weeks, we're going to have a whole new format for y'all. So that'll be really
Wow.
fun. So, all right, question for today. Why practice BioTouch? So we spent a lot of time discussing what what does it mean to practice? Practice anything, huh? What do you practice in your life?
Right.
I mean,
Wow.
it's sort of like everybody has some kind of a practice, right? It could be going to the gym, brushing your teeth, eating is a practice. I mean, most of us eat. We have to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Most of us go to some house of worship. Meditation is a practice. Yoga could be a practice. Going to the gym, I hang out at this gym. I mean, some of these people, man, they got to be there every day at exactly this hour. So, we all have this practice. And BioTouch should be part of those practices for some of the reasons we're going to talk about here. Yeah?
Well, it's interesting because when you were mentioning, meditate, go to a house of worship, eating, that is those are individual practices. But when we start talking about BioTouch, we're immediately talking about practicing something with another person. So it changes the whole dichotomy, the whole playing field for us when we start practicing BioTouch.
Right. Yeah.
Because you can't practice BioTouch without somebody else.
Right. What we call BioTouch. It's always the first question. Can you do it on yourself? Well, we're
Right,
so used to isolation
right.
and healing ourselves, and here's a technique that requires us to touch another human being. And so we're trying to use these shows to help create a new habit. What we called you called it a new rhythm,
Yeah.
or a new dance,
Mhm.
that will bridge the gap between all these different isms, between all the differences and distinctions and differences between human beings on the planet, because you're taking those two fingers and you're touching another human being on the skin.
And when you do that, because we've said many times, BioTouch is a win-win. It's not just about the receiver of BioTouch, the giver of BioTouch. This is when we enter into a true relationship. Both the one receiving, the one giving, they're equal. They both are getting something. And what they're getting is an opportunity to learn and to have an awareness about themselves in that relationship. So, this is the natural course of being a human being,
Right.
entering into a relationship. It's not isolation, it's not separativeness, because in these higher awarenesses, that's an illusion anyway.
Yeah, it reminds me of a couple of things. One was I remember I was in some study group and they talked about in the Bible where they asked Jesus, what's the greatest law? And he went back to the Old Testament. He said, well, the greatest law is to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, all thy soul, and with all thy mind. And then he said, and the second law is like unto it, love the neighbor as thyself. And I always thought, wow, that's amazing, and that you sort of had God, neighbor, and self we're all the same, you know, that you love one, you love the other. And then I remember meeting this guy who did Ho'oponopono out in Hawaii, one of the
Yeah.
elders there. And he had me come in front of the group to start what is healing, you know, how are you going to help this guy named Paul? And so I told people I had a back problem. He said, okay, how are you going to relate to Paul? And so a lot of questions. Well, where does it hurt? When did it happen? How does it feel? And on and on and on. And after 5 minutes, he stops everybody and he goes, okay, nobody got it. And everybody's like, huh? He says, because the pain is not in Paul. He says, the pain resides within you, and Paul is here to remind you of that pain. And I was like,
Wow.
oh my gosh, it's like, what's this guy saying? And
Yeah.
that's what I love about BioTouch. It meets people in their suffering to remind us of our own suffering. And in that, a healing relationship can happen. And we talked a lot about the suffering of humanity.
Yes, which, we're all witnessing right now. So when we talk about establishing a new habit, a new rhythm in our lives, that BioTouch is really a tool for that. Um, when we start to create that, and we talk in this foundation about self-awareness, that journey of self-awareness, but what we're becoming aware of is the pain and suffering. We're really looking at it. We're not just experiencing it in our own selves, we're experiencing it and witnessing in all members of the great group called humanity. We're being stimulated awake, and in that clarity, momentary clarity, we get to see not just our own pain and suffering, but of our brothers and sisters.
You know, I've always what I've enjoyed about BioTouch is it's allowed me to be with people in their suffering. When I went to Egypt and did an interview on an Egyptian Middle Eastern TV station, and people would call in with questions, I recognized it didn't matter where you were on the planet, whether I was in that little town in Memphis, Colorado, or on the other sides of the ocean. All people were suffering, and all people lived in fear.
Mm.
And BioTouch, just with that light touch, met people in that suffering, in their fear, with just that little extension of love. And when you can do that, oh, let me shut that down there. Um, when you can do that, healing can begin to happen. You know, that the new habit of loving the neighbor as thyself, healing happens for both the recipient and the practitioner.
Right. So, we asked the question, we have asked the question many times, what is the body? What, I mean, we're here on this physical planet experiencing this journey, but, and what does BioTouch have to offer us in that pain and suffering? And we've talked many times about the touch itself being able to change create a new habit, create a new rhythm, and actually communicate at the cellular level in that body. So that's why it's so important for us to keep speaking about BioTouch in relation to touching on the skin. We have to begin there because that is where we all recognize ourselves, whether individually or as a group, is in that body. But that's to remind us that that's not where it ends. That may be where it begins for us in that self-awareness. But the intention is to awaken us into something that is playing out a little bit higher than that body. So the pain and suffering is a means to an end. I always think of it like
Right.
that.
And that reminds me again of that neuroscientist or somebody that was trying, you know, he had this degree, he was trying to find the body mind connection and spirit, that trinity he talked about, but he had to prove it scientifically. It had to, like Gary Schwartz, show me the data. And what he learned over all the years of his research was whenever you have a wow experience in your life, changes begin to happen in the deepest seat of consciousness. Well, we won't go into
Mhm.
that this in this show
Right,
today, but
right.
when that happens, as Mr. Lipton said, Dr. Lipton, then it percolates. Then the cells can begin to change and the body can begin to transform. And he said to people, now you go out there and you let those people who have a table set up do that touch healing technique out there, and that will be an experience for you of the wow. And
That will
it
be the
happens
wow.
all the time.
Yeah,
Just doing
right.
that greeting and a little neck and head work on people, they open their eyes and they go, wow. So
Yeah.
I just have to believe, because I can't really see it, that changes are beginning to happen in people when they just get a little BioTouch.
Well, because basically in that moment, you're in the presence, you're just able to be, and you can't, the body immediately responds to that light, loving touch. It's love that breaks everything apart and then unifies us back together. That's what's happening in humanity. We're awakening to, when I say something higher, I'm talking about love.
So,
We're just beginning the journey of even understanding what that means.
so
But BioTouch is
right.
a, yeah.
So you mentioned that word be, and you had talked before the show. You said, oh, it lets us be. I mean, how important is this word, let us be, in
Yeah,
relation to
what does that
BioTouch?
mean, right? And we say, when we say these words, we're like, oh, wait a minute. So what's the meaning of just being? Well, we don't know that either, but we have to, it's like love. We don't really know what love is at this stage, but it is percolating, as you said before. It's a great divine glue that's starting to, its concept is starting to percolate within the hearts and minds of humanity. Well, to be is to just be that love. So that's an evolutionary progressive thing. It's part of it. But I have a concept as a practitioner of BioTouch, receiving and um, giving it, that what I do know is in that moment, that bringing together of two that creates a relationship, I have experienced, if you want to call it a beingness of, there's nothing else. There's not this little isms happening. There's not this little ranting and raving of this little mind questioning, and is this going to happen and is that going to
Right,
happen? For just a moment, I have experienced, if for lack of another word, a beingness, a
right.
presence, right? Just a
A
presence.
presence, that's a perfect word. And, mindfulness is a big word now.
Yes.
You even, there's big buildings being built where people are paying just to go sit on a little cushion and meditate, right? You got
Right.
to spend $35 in order to learn how to just sit quietly for 30 minutes.
Well,
but
we have to go looking for stuff
right.
outside of
And I
ourselves,
think
right?
that's what everybody's looking is a little moment to just be. And
Yeah.
that's what I've always loved about BioTouch. There's no projection. We don't know. We just have a few sets of points. We're not projecting how it should be or what it has been. We're just in the present moment when you do that BioTouch, which is why, to me, that's a practice all of us in humanity need to start. The practice of BioTouch. And again, if you just did that greeting 6 to 8 seconds below the breastbone, 6 to 8 seconds to the left of that big bone, and you did that on another human being and had them do it to you, 30 seconds. Now imagine taking 30 seconds practice every day. Do it when you first get up. Do it when you go to sleep. Do it before you eat breakfast. It doesn't matter. And if you don't have anybody at home, people say, well, but I don't have anybody. Then, if nothing else, project it in your mind.
Right.
Just think
Right.
of somebody, do it to them, and let them do it to you. Now, that's a practice. If all humanity got into, uh, not only would it be the evolution of the body, as we talked about last week, that's revolutionary.
Right. Oh, revolutionary. And these are revolutionary times. There's strong indications. It's a very profound time for us, and it's a time that BioTouch, it's a perfect timing for that, for all of us in this foundation to start really holding this gift
Right.
and presenting it more and more, because as we have said before, it's time. I think humanity is ready to change those old patterns, those old habits, create a new rhythm, not just within ourselves, but creating a new flowing and rhythm within our group. This is what's being called for right now. And when I think about, we have this amazing technique called BioTouch that is here to help bring us into the rhythm of love, of loving instead of,
Right.
and inclusiveness instead of separating ourselves. So that's why touch is so important.
So we want to make sure you always learn how to do it in these shows. Don't just listen to us gabbing away. And so we're going to teach you from our manual. We're going to teach you a little bit of the metabolism set.
The metabolism set can be used to help the body assimilate what it needs and eliminate what it doesn't need. The metabolism set has 2 steps. Step 1 involves touching points in matching fire along the large muscles on the front of the neck. Points 1 and 1 are located above the collarbone in the soft indentations on both sides of the notch at the top of the breastbone. Points 2 and 2 are halfway up the neck on the front of the large muscles. Points 3 and 3 are at the top of the neck on the front of the large muscles. The second step involves holding a point on the front of the body and touching points next to the spine on the back. Hold point X on the front of the body is on a line directly between where the nipples would be on a youth and is 1 to 2 inches to the left of the breastbone. Another way to find X is 1/3 of the way up the breastbone from greeting point 1 and 1 to 2 inches to the left of the breastbone. The points on the back are located next to the spine, forming a rectangle around the breakover point. The breakover point is where the bottom of the rib cage joins the spine and can be found by imagining a line directly through the body from greeting point 1. To perform step 2, find hold point X on the front of the body and touch points 1 through 4 on the back. Point 1 is approximately 1 to 2 inches up from the breakover point on the left spine muscle. Point 2 is directly across from point 1 on the right spine muscle. Point 3 is 2 to 3 inches below the breakover point on the right spine muscle. Point 4 is used to address blood sugar problems and is added to the other metabolism points when needed. It is located across from point 3 on the left spine muscle.
And there you have it, the metabolism set, which we do quite often. Just helps the body just assimilate what it needs, get rid of what it doesn't need, and then that blood sugar point is really quite effective. We've seen people
Really,
cut back quite a
yep,
bit on their insulin.
yep.
So, another day, we want to make sure you
The
understand,
metabolism
not
set
that,
can be
we want to understand that, where is it? There it is. We have Elderly Care, September 26th, with John Abraham, who is a patient care advocate, healthcare administrator, and he's going to discuss how the medical system deals with the elderly population and how to make sure you get the care, treatment, and procedures you want. And he's also going to discuss how to choose an excellent elder care attorney, while then we teach you the points to help people with that uh, situation. You know, whether you have a loved one or you're a professional working with the elders, and especially to help break that isolation that happens in a lot with those of us who get old and just stick in our little bubble over there.
Yeah,
So we did it. Another
we
week.
did. We did another one.
Good job, Bev. Let me turn to you and say thanks, Bev.
Thank you, Paul.
And thank you all. Have a great week, huh?
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Has got you down and you live in town. Take a trip down to Pima Street. The people down there are people who care. They will get you back on your feet. Put love into action. Put love into action. If you ever want to have any real satisfaction, choose love while you still can. Don't even